This is the advisory team meeting on Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. It is 6:04 p.m. We're in the Community Development Building, and we will start the meeting. Thanks, everybody. And we have, as you can see, Fire Chief Mike Warner here with us, and we have a small but hopefully vocal group. So this group kind of knows how it goes, so we usually meet in small groups with department head. Mike is here, and he's going to talk about all the great stuff and good stuff that they do. And Mike, you can just decide how you want to do it, if you take questions in the middle, the end, or whatever. And then any questions that come to mind, you guys either can ask. It's pretty informal, obviously. Everybody grab more pizza. And I don't know, Mike, you just want to take it away?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. So as you said, my name is Mike Warner. I'm the fire chief. If at any point you have questions, just stop me. We can talk. You will find that I am very, very passionate about being a firefighter. So I talk a lot and I talk fast. So if you need me to slow down, just let me know, because again, I really like what I do. So I handed out our annual report. So when you get some time, please go through that. That is last year, so one calendar year of a report. There's also some flyers that we'll talk about later on and throughout, but we're hiring paid on calls. So we'll kind of talk about that. So I want to talk about who we are. Well, I'm getting actually a call right now, so hopefully I don't have to leave.
And you know what I should do, Mike, is I didn't do is just have us go around the table and have them introduce themselves to you. I didn't
Perfect.
do that. Michael, do you want to start?
Michael Holmes. Steve Blaine. Nice to meet you.
Meet you.
Rachel Savage.
Where's Miguel?
Perfect, thank you. So again, who we are, we're the fire department, okay? We don't sit in the recliners, unlike what you see on TV, and we're really busy. So we actually cover 250 square miles. We cover parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota, so it's kind of unique that we cover that. We provide ambulance and we provide fire. The fire coverage area is all of the proper limits of Red Wing, and then also the Wakuta Township. The ambulance goes into Wisconsin, like I said, and then some of the rural townships, Goodhue County, and throughout. So 250 square miles is actually a pretty big area. Last year we had our busiest year at 4,300 calls, almost 4,400 calls, out of 2 fire stations, okay? That's a lot. That means that our staff is moving all the time. And pre-COVID, I could have had a completely different talk, and I know that everyone's industries and life changed, but COVID really changed how the fire service, in particular EMS, really looked at things. So we'll kind of go through that. But again, we cover everything. And my job is kind of unique because we have to be prepared for everything. And if we take a step back and look at what Red Wing has to offer, one, there's a nuclear power plant, so the challenges that has to offer, okay? We have the Prairie Island Indian community, the challenges that has to offer with hosting concerts of up to 17,000 people on an island that has one road in, one road out, that's blocked by a major railway, hundreds of feet away from a nuclear power plant. And if you guys know concerts, you know what people like to do at concerts, right? So they like to have fun. So it's a challenge, and that's about our furthest area of the district. So when we move on down the river, not only do we have that, we have rural areas, so we have hydrant and non-hydrant areas, which poses a challenge. We have industry, fire hydrants and non-fire hydrants, so rural areas. So which means we have to bring water in for fires. Okay, and then when we move on down, we have industry, the large industry, to obviously Red Wing Shoe, and the challenges on somebody getting stuck in a machine at Red Wing Shoe, or any type of hazardous materials inside of Red Wing Shoe. And then we keep on moving down the river to the grain, Red Wing grain, ADM. We can have grain engulfments. We can't stop to forget about the river and the challenges that the river had, especially recently with some horrific barge accident. And every year there's always a challenge that we have on that. We have another power plant. We have high rises downtown. We have residential homes. We have homes that are set back far away from the road, which causes a challenge because that means it's more hose and more effort. And then we go all the way on down, and then we throw in the other side of the river that we have to respond to, 36 square miles over there. It's a big area, right? And we do all of that out of 2 fire stations. And we do rely on our neighbors, our neighboring towns, to help us. Because we can't do it all alone, especially again at 4,400 calls. This year we're going to be at 45, if not 4,600 calls. So calls keep increasing. And that's the really interesting thing, and we will talk about that later on, but I always have to be ready. No matter if you're having a heart attack or if your house is on fire, I have to be ready for that next call. Okay, so who we are. So again, I talk about that. We're the fire department, we're the ambulance department, we're the technical rescue department, because I forgot the bluffs. We have bluff rescues that we can get people off. People break their leg or have a medical emergency up on the bluff and it's a challenge. So we're everything. We're literally the last line that somebody calls. And the fun thing about my job is when they call 911, they need us to help them. So they're appreciative. So we have a different look on life than some of our compadres or other departments because we actually get to help some. And I'm not saying that the other departments are not, but I'm saying is they actually come up and they could be not breathing or their house is on fire or whatever. And I can't tell you the feeling that it is when you have someone come up who I've never met and just give me a hug and they just start crying. And they just say thank you. It's amazing, right? It's absolutely amazing. Or a little kid comes up to me in the store and goes to give me a hug. Or I can walk into school where nobody else can walk into school, in any school, without getting checked in and approval and background checks. I can just walk in any random school and say hi to kids or educate them. So there's a lot of clout that comes with that position, and each and every one of us takes that very seriously. And it's a passion, it's a calling. It's also a burden on our family, because as of now, like my wife is at home taking care of her daughter. So I'm not home a lot because of that, because that pager is always on and have to go. Same thing with all of our staff, right? It puts a lot of stress on them. So again, who we are, we have 2 fire stations, okay? Our fire station right here, and then our fire station out west at Station 2 by the Quick Trip. We run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We're always available. It's a combination department, so we have both full-time members and paid on calls. And our full-time staff, we have 24 of them. They work 48 hours, then they're off for 96. So they're on for 2 full days and they're off for 4 days. And they chose that schedule in their union contract, which is totally fine, but that means that they're up a lot at nighttime, right? So they're up. And then our paid on calls, we have 30 paid on calls, and they come back when we have large incidents or multiple incidents. So you could have your normal job, normal 8 to 5 job or weekend job or whatever you want, and when the pager goes off, I need you to come in, you come in. And that's happening more and more. If we look back about 6 years ago, our paid on calls came back maybe 20 times a year. Last year I had to call them over 70 times. So that's 70 times that if you're not working at Ford, or you're not at a hair salon, or you're not out cooking, or whatever your job is, that you're not at there. So it really takes a community, and that's the interesting thing that I think about our job is it truly is a community effort to be able to get everyone safe. Again, when I have a fire, we had a lightning strike a couple weeks back at 2 in the morning. Actually, I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning. The crews are up, the paid on calls are there. At 7 o'clock when we're done, they have to go to their job. They are tired. And they're tired, that I mean that they have been up working a strenuous job in the heat, losing body fluids right, from sweating and all that, and they still have to go maintain their job. So it's hard. It really is taxing on it. Okay? So that's kind of who we are. Again, I talked about some of the services that we offer. You know, we are an advanced life support ambulance, which is a paramedic level. You cannot get any higher. So we are going to be, our paramedics are I can speak for this, they are the best paramedics that I've seen in the industry, okay? Which is really good, but that means that they have to do a lot of work. So a paramedic, the difference between a paramedic and an EMT is a paramedic can stick a tube down your throat and breathe for you. We can stick a needle into your lungs if your lung is collapsing. I can hook up a cardiac monitor, not only interpret the rhythm, but I can then shock, or if your heart is beating slow, I will speed it up, and then a whole host of medical drugs inside of that. So you can't get any more advanced on your medical skills. And that comes into tune being in a rural community that we have a lot of work to do. And if you are having a heart attack, unfortunately our hospital in town does not have a cath lab, so you have to go to Rochester. So we then have to take you to the local hospital to get stabilized, and then we transfer you down to Rochester, and we're with the patient. We're with the patient for a long time, so our paramedics are forced to be really good. They can call a helicopter, but on bad weather days, which Minnesota has, it happens often that we have to take you down there. Okay, so we do that. We also have, like I said, our fire coverage, and on your average, what I call an average bedroom fire or kitchen fire, I need about 4, 5, maybe 6 fire engines. So that's very taxing. And again, the challenge that is while I have this large scale incident, if somebody has a heart attack or somebody falls down, I still need to attend to their needs. So I always have to be ready for whatever that call is, or even a second fire at the same time. So we need to be cognizant of that. So we also offer, we have a fire marshal and we do inspections. The fire marshal's job is to be compliant and make sure that public buildings and private buildings are up to code. Now, we don't inspect residential, we have no authority in residential, but commercial buildings we do. And the whole intention of that is to make sure that it's safe for the employee and the customer going in there. Okay, so that there's a fire inspector and a fire marshal. The fire marshal is dealing with new codes and dealing with plans, and a fire inspector goes out in the field. But every business in town gets inspected at least every 2 years. There's some that are on a 1-year cycle, like schools, large places as assembly and stuff like that. But that's a whole nother task, right? To make sure that businesses are actually safe. And we find a lot of things. We find a lot of problems, and that's our job to make sure that we're safe. So we offer a lot, right? We do a lot with what we have. I talked about our coverage area and the challenges that has. Another aspect that we're going to absolutely dive in today is public education, but we do public education. My whole goal is to never have to go on a fire. If I can educate kids young and start them young and work that through, then I get that education and they're practicing fire safe, then I never have to do my job. While I love my job, I never want to have to go to somebody's house to fight a fire. It is one of the most disheartening and sad things, and I would not wish that upon anyone because it is so terrible to be. But public education is a lot, and it works. It works really, really well. In my previous life, I was a fireman in Illinois, and when we had a kitchen fire, and we just did public education in the schools, and a kindergartner was in there and learned you don't go back inside. Well, they had a kitchen fire, and the mom wanted to go back inside, and the kindergartner told mom, don't go inside. The fire department's going to come. Don't go inside. Finally, mom listened and did the right thing. It works. I know it works, right? Because I've actually seen it. You know, the challenge that we had during COVID is we couldn't get into schools, right? They wouldn't let us in because we're around COVID all the time. Hence why I have a mask on. And that was a challenge, but we adapted and we overcame. So we did the same talks that we do in the schools. We just did them virtual. And then we gave the links all to the teachers, and my daughter being young, she actually got to partake in it. Now you lose a little bit because it's on a screen and it's not in person, but there's that. So again, we're going to talk about public education more because I need your input and your help to make this succeed. Talked about our inspections. Another cool program that we just started recently is our fall prevention program. Again, I talked to you and said that the ambulance is busy. And we have noticed that we are going to a lot of the same residents multiple times for a fall. And something that could be prevented. So if we can prevent the ambulance from going to a repeat customer, then that makes sure that that ambulance is available for the next person who needs it. So when our paramedics find someone who falls, our paramedics will spend a couple extra minutes on time educating and figuring out why did they fall. Is it medical? Okay, well let's get you the medical attention you need. But let's say they tripped on a rug. Okay, they can then educate and explain to the elderly, hey, if we move this rug in a different way, or maybe put it over here, let's get all the rugs, then you don't trip, then you can stay in your house. And the goal is for you to stay in your house longer and to prevent that ambulance from going to that house and tying it up. And we've partnered with a lot of resources from Habitat to Health and Human Services, and after the call, our fire marshal and inspector will go there and perform a house inspection if the patient wants. And then if they need a grab rail, let's say they fall in the tub by having a shower, I can't install a grab rail, but I can call you, who you can get a grab rail and you can install it. And again, that's the whole point, is to keep people in their homes as long as we can so that they're not in assisted living or in a nursing home or moving in with, siblings or kids or whatever the case is. So that's a very new program, but we've identified that we have to do something. I can't really change my call volume. I'm going to go on car accidents. I'm going to go on fires. I'm going to do that. So what can I change? Well, let's try to prevent some of the things from happening. Same thing on the education side. So that's kind of exciting. Another thing we do is CPR classes, right? CPR saves lives. I don't know how else to say that besides CPR saves lives, and it saves lives right now. Okay, right now. And the more people that we can have that know how to push on somebody's chest is going to save lives. And I keep talking about this community thing because that is what the community is. If you're at the store and somebody drops down and you can start CPR right now, that person has a chance. I'm not there. I'll be there in 2 minutes, but I'm not there now. You are. So the more people that we have to do CPR, that's how a community is going to survive and make things work. Okay. Challenges. we have a lot of challenges. The biggest challenge that I think the fire department and ambulance has right now is funding. While our city council supports us amazingly, which means that the city itself supports us. On the ambulance side, every time an ambulance goes out, we have to bill a patient. And the reason why is when that patient is getting the specialized care to their house, and only that person is having it at that time. So there's consumables, right? There's medicine, there's IV catheters, there's all of that. And there are a lot of federal regulations that are around how much we can charge or what we can charge specific to Medicare. And I could have a bill that's $1 million, but if you're on Medicare, I'm only gonna get $558. It's not gonna get any more. So it doesn't matter how high the bill is, I'm only gonna get whatever the Medicare cap is. In our community, our demographics are on my ambulance calls, 72% of my ambulance calls are a Medicare or Medicaid patient. Okay, so again, I'll let that sink in. That I have to pay for services. There's things that we have to, a new cardiac monitor is $45,000 for one cardiac monitor. A new ambulance is $250,000+, right? So when you get that 911, you are getting the exclusive right to that ambulance right now at your house, that mobile hospital on wheels. The challenge is I don't get the funding from the government. So 72% is my funding, and I'm never gonna get full funding on it. Other communities have other rates. Woodbury, places like that, their rates are different. This is our demographics, and that's okay. Each town has their own, but this is our challenge. This is Red Wing's challenge, and it's nobody else's challenge because this is Red Wing. Goodhue has a different problem. Again, everybody else has their own challenge inside of that. So funding is a legitimate challenge inside of that.
Because of age, Mike, you're saying not because the city has a policy, but because the age of our community is
age of the community, or whatever the insurance of the individual who's calling 911, Medicare, Medicaid. Okay, so those are 72% of our call volume. Those patients have it. Somebody like me, I have obviously insurance for the city. I've never had to call 911. So I've never needed an ambulance, so I don't offset it. That doesn't mean that the ambulance isn't there, it just means I've never had to pay the bill. So of our customers, as we call them, 72% is Medicare. That's just Red Wing. Like I said, that's just the challenge that Red Wing brings. There's a lot of older people in this town, there's a lot of people on Medicare or Medicaid, okay? So, we're looking at different ways. Again, can I raise the rate for the other remaining 28%? I could. But how high does it have to be for the normal insurance people to cover it? Never going to cover that, right? So that's a challenge. I could have less staff, but I just told you my numbers are up. My numbers keep going up, and you want that ambulance there all the time, every single time, right? Which I do too, because I'm a taxpayer and I live in town and I want to make sure. So that's the real challenge that we have to figure out. I don't know how we're going to do that, but we'll get there at some point, right? The other next challenge.
How do cities that are covered by Alina or North or Healtheast or those, how does that work?
Great question. So I'll use a city that uses Mayo, okay, for an example. Rochester, they have a Mayo ambulance, right? So their hospital, Mayo ambulance is a subsidy of the Mayo hospital. They're getting more money by the hospital that is offsetting the cost of the ambulance. Same thing with the Healtheast, same thing with any of those other agencies that have that hospital in it. If I were Mike Warner and I were to start a business up today and I were to run an ambulance and I didn't have any other supply of money besides an ambulance, I would be broke. I would not be able to sustain. But again, if you're a hospital and you have other ways of funding or trading, right, all of these other avenues, that's how they're surviving. Cities, how we use is I have to use some taxpayer money to help subsidize the ambulance. That's how it supports.
How do the cities get those ambulance services to service their area? Because the city isn't paying for it.
Correct. So Minnesota's very unique. Minnesota, I don't know how it established it, but the state has a regulatory board that assigns a coverage area, and that says you are this area, you are this area, you are this area. That's how we're outside of the city limits of Red Wing, because they want to make sure that 100% of the area is covered, 100% of the state is covered. So they applied for this license. It's called an ambulance license. So those towns that have it, again, Rochester, right, Mayo, that covers it, they somehow got the board to establish them to be able to be their emergency medical or ambulance service. And then they owned a license. We own our license for our area, meaning no other agency can come into ours. Mayo cannot come into our area without my permission to handle a patient. It's against the law. So kind of answers your question, but it all has to deal with the state making sure that the entire state is coverage. Now, I hold a license. I could sell my license to somebody or give it to someone else, but again, I speak to a lot of fire chiefs and a lot of ambulance chiefs throughout the state. You don't want that. We provide the best coverage at any other place. I know my colleagues in Austin, Mankato, like all of those, right? They also have a male covering them. They're required to have one ambulance in their town. Their patients for a second call in progress are waiting 20, 30, 40 minutes. Unfortunately, you can't have that happen, right?
Because where I came from before I moved to Red Wing, the ambulance actually had a stall in the fire department.
Yep.
So they were in the city all the time. That's where they were stationed.
Where at?
Anoka?
Yep. So that's exactly right. And I don't know who the ambulance service was, Alina, but again, they have other funding streams, So that's a challenge. Funding is a challenge for us. The next challenge that I have is, like I said, always being ready for that next call. Okay, we had this horrific boat accident that I had all of our units tied up on, or even, let's move past that one, we had a gas leak this weekend that I had all of our units tied up on. Other calls still happen. So I have to either have enough staff for that next call, or I have to call in somebody, but you want me to be there in my fast response time. Right, so you'll see me calling in our neighbors and sitting in our fire station. That's because we're tied up on all of these other calls. So if you see another town sitting in our fire station, that's why we're tied up on something, right? But that's a challenge, and I never know. That's a challenge, but a positive for me. I like the job because I never know when a call is going to come in or what that call is going to be. I enjoy that because you never know. You're not stuck in that same old rut. But it is an absolute challenge. But I get used to it, and our staff gets used to it. So now I want to kind of talk about really what we're here about, okay? And that is, I need help. Again, I talked to you about a community. This is a community effort. You hear that our community members are firefighters. We live in this town. Our kids go to school in this town. We shop in this town. And it's all about community. I need help on how can we educate our community, okay? So I'm looking for feedback. It can be fire or EMS, because even EMS education, I can do blood pressure checks. I can do all different things on making sure that you're following your doctor's orders, that you're even seeing your doctor, that you're going to your doctor, that if you need insulin or whatever, diabetic or whatever the case is. I need help on how we educate. So I'm going to talk to you about a couple ways on how we educate, and then I want to know what else are we missing so that we can educate more. Because again, the goal is for me to be sitting and never have to go on a call. Right? That's the ultimate goal. So I talked about the schools. We're into schools. Now, again, if we take COVID away in a normal year, and I already talked to the superintendent before he left, we will be into schools again. Okay, so we are educating during the month of October, during Fire Prevention Month. So we're in there, and we're tailoring each grade to the grade specific. So the kindergartner understands you don't play with matches, you dial 911, and you get out. A middle school kid really gets down into okay, when you're screwing around with your friends and you're playing in matches, come on, so you kind of dive into it, right, a little more. We also have our open house.
A quick question.
Yes.
Out of how many times would you say a year that you guys are in the schools giving little presentations, I guess would be the best
So
way?
we are in the schools, every school in preschool, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, if time allows, in October. For sure, in that. Now, we go to the schools different times for different events, but it's not tailored. The challenge that we have is teachers need their time, and it's disruptive when we go in there. So we try to limit and get it down to a key point. So I'm in the schools at least once. Again, we go to different functions. We're there if there's a medical call. We educate. We did some familiarization with our faces before COVID, and actually served in a lunchroom so people realize that, hey, firefighters are friendly. We're not enemies, right? All of that type of stuff. I would love to get in there more, but the reality is it is hard on teachers because it is disruptive. Again, I have a young daughter, and she always tells me, she goes, "Yay, we didn't get to learn today because so-and-so came in," and the teacher's like, "Well, that went there that day." And then when I show up with a nice shiny fire truck and get all the kids riled up, then you got to calm them down. So I mean, that is a challenge,
Do you guys do anything out in Cannon Falls?
We do not. So we only do our schools.
Okay.
They do things, but I can't. I wouldn't want somebody stepping into my turf.
So
I'm not going to step into their turf. Yeah.
Because I see Goodhue County, they do a lot of, the sheriff's department.
Yep.
I see them presentations and stuff.
Yep, so I mean, we're out there. I mean, we're in our schools, but, so we do that. We have our open house every year in October at the station, and we bring in other people. We have our public safety trailer, and we can educate and teach kids to stop, drop, and roll, and how that works. Anytime we have a tour, we have tons of tours. I mean, people like to see the fire station, right? Kids and adults like to see the shiny trucks and turn the lights on. And I use it when I give a tour, while I'm showing the kids the fire trucks, I actually educate the parents or siblings or whoever, the adults more than I do, and explain things that you can do to save lives. Interactions on scene, we had an issue with a kid that was lighting some fires, and educating not only the kid, but the neighbor, because it was a townhome. So we, if there were to be a fire, how would it get out, all of that type of stuff. So we educate on scene. We educate when we're at the store. Our firefighters live at the fire station for 48 hours. So when they got to go get food or go to Menards and they see people, we educate. Prairie Island Public Safety Day, we're out there educating, again, the same way. River City Days, we're out there. And we also install smoke alarms. We have a smoke alarm program that we can install. If someone is in desperate need, they can call the fire station. And when we do that, we then educate as well. So that's what, again, I'm looking for you guys. How can I get into the community more? Or how do I get people to listen to not have your candle, including my wife, right next to the drapes, right? So I've educated her now, and she still does it. But those are those serious things that how can we do that? That's what I need your help with.
So I know you guys are at Jordan Towers a lot. And what if you would partner with them, like just one specific group, the mental health providers in town?
Okay.
Because we're with our clients all the time, and we could help, with at least the calls that are more common with those that are having mental health issues, help educate them then when we're with them to maybe you don't need to call 911 at this point. Maybe this is something you and I can work through.
So how would we educate the staff more?
Educate the staff more.
Okay.
Yeah. The whole premise of what's predictable is preventable, and you guys know what's predictable, and a lot of those mental health calls. I mean, I know you're working with one of our clients right now as far as hoarding. Hoarding is something that's harder to find really good trainings on.
So how would this training look then in your eyes? Would we come to your facility?
Yeah, to let us know, or we can come see your financial
either or. But
to let us know what the most common calls are that you're getting from our clients, and how we can work with them and make that part of their goal. Because one of the approved Medicaid goals is learning about community resources and using them appropriately. So that would be more reducing those 911 calls that aren't appropriate and freeing up more of your time that way. Then we can work with them on that.
Okay. In which agency? I mean, just through...
Well, I'm with Hiawatha Valley, but there's Nystrom's and there's...
Could we start at Hiawatha?
Yeah. And we also have a group every Monday night. And so just coming, if somebody wanted to come, it's from 4 to 5:30. And our office is now across the street from you guys. Well, my part of the office. So you guys could just come and just talk to them about one of the high flyers is there that comes and that calls 911 a lot, and just say, these are the kind of things that, you can talk to your arms workers versus calling us,
Definitely an idea. I'm trying to think of how I could get a couple staff members over there or something to educate. What comes to mind right away is sometimes people call their nurse, and the nurse's typical line is call 911. Well, that's not the solution.
And with the staffing shortages, we have so many nurses not showing up, and so many home providers not showing up, and all of that. I mean, it's just a domino effect of issues with working with the clients. But we have a very dedicated, and we've just been approved to hire 2 more armed staff, which would be great. I think we'll be up to 8 or 9. And we each have about 20 clients. So that's, a pretty good group of probably who, I know they call you guys a lot. They tell us.
Yeah, that's definitely something.
But it's something that if you let us know what the most common reason are they're calling, then we can work with them to try and reduce that, and how we can work with them. I assume a lot of it is their anxiety when they're calling. And so how we can reduce that and that type of
Okay,
thing.
I like that, thank you. What else?
Are there free, like, community CPR classes?
We do a hands-only CPR class that is free. So I'll give an example of River City Days. We will have our little tent set up, and when we see people, we have our mannequins and explain it. But if you have better ideas, I'm all ears on how to be able to do that.
What's the difference, Mike? Can you?
Hands-only CPR is just we're teaching you how to literally pound chest and push the chest and how fast you're going to do that. Okay, so you're just putting your hands on. You're not doing them mouth to mouth. You're not doing any of that type of thing. It's just
standard procedure.
Yep.
Now, right?
Yep.
Can you
So-
say anything, Rachel? Because you work. I mean, just with the people you work with, I just wondered.
Yeah, I mean-
everybody here has a different. Like I can see people having really good ideas.
Yeah, I worked at the Y for like 5 years with kids and whatnot, so we had to do a lot of CPR training, and I have also worked a number of years with people with like physical and cognitive disabilities that have like support staff and whatnot.
I mean, I'm assuming most of those are CPR trained, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. And something I always found was that it was like 6 months until the next CPR class came around, and like I feel like a lot of community members don't know that there's that training. I mean, I guess that's kind of more like a pop-up thing at River City Days, but if you could maybe do like a twice a year kind of thing class, and I don't know if this would just be more of a strain on resources, but you could do mailings to advertise it
Do
out to
you,
neighborhoods.
do you get certified for those hands-on?
Not
or
for
is it
hands-on,
Hands-on,
yeah.
okay.
You know, if you need it for your job, you know,
We don't, which is weird when I think about it.
but we do. I mean, we do offer the full CPR classes where
Yeah.
it's the BLS or Heart Saver and all of that, and there is a charge for it because
Yeah.
obviously I have a staff member going out there.
Right.
But I mean, if your staff wants it, we're more than happy to call us and we can.
Oh man, don't bring up that I brought that up. They won't be happy with me if I say it. More training.
That might
We can come to you.
Yeah.
actually be nice to do even like with the chamber or something to get the business community, you know, they always do like after hours events, and it would be, I mean, it would be a good thing if, you know, at least every business had, you know, a couple people that were
It would be.
familiar with it.
Because especially in those stores alone or something, or like,
Yeah.
you know, you get your small business, somebody drops in your store.
Yeah.
You're going to want to know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, the basic first aid's a little harder because you need to have stuff.
Supplies.
Right? But I like the idea of reaching out to the chamber.
Yeah.
And if they have a community, you know, chamber meeting or something, we can take 20 minutes, 30 minutes of their time, bring in our mannequins that we have plenty of, and practice hands-only CPR. I like
Business
that.
after hour would be really
Yeah,
fun
I mean,
to
it would
do
be a neat
that.
event. I think people would
Yeah.
like it.
Who's in charge of that?
Laura Dolan.
Okay,
I can email you.
please.
I have her phone number if you want it.
Yeah. Just if you could email that, yeah. What else?
One thing too, this is, I don't know if it's really training, it's just more like up and coming things, but I listened to a great podcast from, I don't know what station was out in New York, but they have like this like junior firefighter program. It was in kind of a, you know, harder hit neighborhood. And they like these kids starting at, I don't know, like 12 or 13, I think, can come on Saturdays and they like, you know, help clean the trucks and they, you know, fold equipment or whatever. And a lot of them then become, you know, either volunteers or actually go into the fire service. And it's a nice way for some disadvantaged kids to have a mentor.
You're 100% right. Actually, I was a product of a junior program. I started when I was in my junior year in high school. And before I know it, I wasn't even 21 and I was a paramedic and I, you know, couldn't even drink alcohol, and there I am literally saving lives and giving narcotics and drugs to you, right? So it works because I was brought up into that. So you're 100% correct in being able to get in that. Actually, we've already reached out to the, I'm going to say it wrong, but the pathways at the high school. So if there are high school students who want to interest in it, there just hasn't been a lot of interest yet in it. I think again, COVID ruined a lot of things, but you're 100% right because the youth are going to help drive it. I need to start reaching out to them now so that they can help replace us and this, you know, whole thing goes forward. So yes, absolutely.
would you be the contact person for somebody to get a hold of to set up something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because with the kids, I think that'd be something really with the kids, the younger generation that I work with, trying to help. One big thing I work with them on is finding something, just to occupy their mind positively instead of negatively. And I think if, doing a class like that would really empower this younger generation. So I might have to get your card before you leave, and I'll touch base with you about that. That's a great idea, that junior. I won't lie, man. When I was little, it was either football or being like a firefighter. Because all my uncles and grandpa and them, they all did it and stuff. And so, but then I went a different route.
Again, I knew when I was 2, I wanted to be a fireman. I realized I either wanted to be a bulldozer, and I realized I couldn't change into one, then I was a firefighter. My dad was a volunteer fireman. I can remember multiple times as a kid going in the back of his car. I'd put my snow pants on, and I was giggling because he'd have to run down to the fire station, and then the area is swearing because he misses the first truck because he got to go back and drop me off, So, I've always known very early on that I want to be a firefighter. In fact, I love my daughter, and one of my favorite things to do is ask her what she dreams about at night. So in the morning I ask her, she always asks me, I ask her, she dreams about unicorns and I don't know, whatever kids do. And she asked me, Daddy, what do you dream about? Fire trucks. And that's legit. To this day, I dream about fire trucks because I love my job, everything about that. So yes, it works. The junior works, yeah.
What would it take to get something like that up and going?
Time. And I don't mean that in any disrespect. I mean that in
No, that's
total
real
respect
talk.
because I want to do it right, and we need to do it right for these kids.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge that we have right now is, like I told you, all of these challenges on increase of calls. Saturday is my day off. I was at the fire station for 4 calls on a Saturday. And I was there for about 8 hours. That cuts into family time for me. So I don't know. I know I have ideas on how to do it. I just personally have to prioritize other tasks and do them.
Actually, it's a question for Michelle. Since we don't have the path that we originally had for this group, could we take that on and do some initial legwork and then develop some things so you're not doing that initial legwork, like researching other communities that have it, and then bring that back to you in the city?
To be honest, I know exactly how I want to do it, right? I developed our program back in Illinois for educating and actually getting people through their certification classes and all of that. It just comes down to my time and my staff availability is teaching. I'd love to have your input. I'm not saying that I don't want that, but it comes down to, okay, now we have kids. I don't have anyone that can actually lead them right now because we're all running calls. And when they're not running calls and their days off, they're either filling in because I'm short-staffed right now, or I'm calling them in to run calls because we're that busy. So it is a priority. I just have to move it a little lower. But when we get to that point, reaching out in the community, I'll be able to put things out that says, okay, it's time. We're going to start a junior fire explorer program. In fact, the Scouts of America have a program with that it's the Explorer Post, and you're actually starting a post up, but you're working out of a fire station and you're getting the experience, because then it comes into the legal side, right? You're going to be climbing a ladder and you're going to be washing fire trucks. You're minors, so I need to then have our legal department make sure that we're covered, our insurance department. So unfortunately there's a lot of administrative stuff that has to happen first, but I love the idea. In fact, honestly, my assistant chief just brought up the idea about 3 weeks ago about doing this. And we said as soon as we can get through a couple things, it is a priority. I'm not going to lie to you. It's just triaging and timing.
Would you when you talk about the pathways, would some of it be even just getting kids through a little bit? Like, some kids from the high school just even, the program would be obviously the thing you want to do, but
yeah, maybe that's what it is. The education.
Baby stepping into it and trying to get kids even into the, in the truck at the station. Just.
I reach out to the gentleman
If we can't start bidding.
who's the gentleman over there who does it?
McQuinlan.
Yes. So talk to him about, we have multiple paths. If you have somebody who wants to go on the EMS side, I can assign you to the ambulance and you can do EMS stuff. You want to do fire side? Cool. You want to do the fire marshal? You want to do code enforcement? You want to do building inspections? We can do that. You want to be an administrator? Come follow me for the day, right? Or once a week or whatever the case is. So yeah, maybe we just need to educate the children more and know that, hey, this opportunity is out there. It's a really good job. It's a really good way to give back to your community. It's very rewarding. Come put some time in. And I know that once we get one kid in there, the word's going to get out, and do that. It happened next door at City Hall. I got one full-time employee who became a paid-on-call. Now a couple of them are, and they love it. They absolutely love it because it's such a rewarding job, So yeah, we need to somehow find someone who can be the guinea pig and just do that.
So you're saying you can have people shadow without too much overhead or any of that stuff?
Correct.
I'll come do it.
You gotta shave your beard.
No, I'm cool. I'm cool.
Can you push that to the schools and not necessarily like go to school and talk about it, but just administratively?
Yeah, I mean,
put something out?
we've talked with the gentleman about it, so I mean, he's aware that it's there. And I guess how that program works is when a kid comes to him and says, hey, I want to do XYZ, okay, we'll get you in touch with whoever and set up the program. And I don't exactly know. I'm pretty sure it's only seniors, but it's starting to get into juniors. Is that right?
So both my kids are
Okay.
one's going to be in the physical therapy next year, and then Gavin has a couple of different things he's checking into. Some of them have, depending on which pathway you want, some of them have age requirements.
Okay.
Depending on what it is. But juniors can do it for sure. And Gavin's going to be a sophomore, and I know Mick's going to talk to him next year, about the stuff. So it is starting. Originally he had 4 seniors, and now he's growing it.
Right.
Yeah.
What other education-wise ways?
You mentioned calls to like vehicle accidents and whatnot. Do you have any involvement in any of the local like driving courses? Like, do you do a segment talking about like calls that you've
We
received?
don't, but that is a phenomenal idea. Driving's scary, right? I mean, there's a lot of nasty things that happen in distracted driving and all of that. So that's a great idea to reach out to them to
Maybe
educate.
the night that you watch that film that the parents go with,
Okay.
because the highway patrol's there. They haven't done it the last 2 years because of COVID, but that it's a really, really great presentation. The guy who does it is really good. And by the way, your fire marshal rocks, and he makes code like really not boring and fun.
No,
And he's
really-
very easy to work with. He's so good.
I call him Rain Man sometimes because he comes up with these codes. And those code books, they're probably this thick, and but he remembers every single one of them. It's impressive.
And what I like about him is he doesn't just tell you that this is a problem, fix it. He's like, okay, so here's a problem. How can we work this? And he'll sit there and make it work with you and tell you, he doesn't just leave you saying, change this or fix this, and
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, he's really good. I really appreciate him.
I like that idea of going to the driving schools. What else? Are we missing anywhere on community events or, I like to tell the fire trucks too, when you see a lemonade stand, go and stop. 1, who doesn't like lemonade? And 2, the kids think it's an awesome thing, but then you educate. Again, take every second that we can to educate, because that's really what it's all about, any interaction we have. And now I know sometimes the bad press we get, they're out drinking lemonade for free or visiting somebody's house. No, we're actually educating. This is a good thing, But what else can you guys think of?
Do you go out like to some of the programs like after school? So I know not in the classroom, but like
We've never been invited to any of them.
Youth outreach or just some of the organizations that have. I'm just trying to think, so you'd hit smaller groups.
No, we've never actually been invited to them. I know that recently we went to the first MOPS or Mothers of Preschoolers and the homeschooling group and got touched and linked in with them so that we can educate on that side of it, but never for the after school. I've never had anyone reach out to us. Again, I have staff that are always working, so we can send people at any point. It's just a
Like
matter
Justin
of...
Pline at Kids Junction, they would love that. You know, and now they have a preschool now too, so, you know, you could be there even like during their preschool and like after school or whatever.
I know we do hit the preschools, but if that's a newer one, yeah.
It is, it's a
Okay.
new, so, the Rotary Public Schools now has one through Kids Junction.
Okay.
I think it's at Burnside, I
okay.
think so, yeah.
We can reach out to them.
And what about just like, you know, connecting, like, usually, oh, I know you're at night between night, but usually like, you know, soccer practices are set nights, you know, because your games and your practices are the same nights. You know, if, well, Allison, obviously with Peter, you know, just saying like if there was a night that they knew it was kind of a, you know, a practice night mainly, where you guys could just be out at some of the fields after, because they'll practice with multiple teams at the same field at the same time, or they're back to back, where if you went just end of one practice, beginning of another, you'd probably hit, you know, 6-8 teams at the same time.
Yeah, take 5 minutes and talk to them, or. Yeah. So the last thing I guess I want to talk about, and if you want to come back, you can, but we're hiring. Okay, I'm hiring paid on calls. And paid on call, like I talked about, is a very unique spot because you get to live your normal life, but then at night or daytime or however you want to do it, you get to put on your cape and you get to be a firefighter, okay? And it's cool because I will pay you to go to school. I will give you the equipment to go to school. I will even give you transportation to go to school. And all I ask is in return that you stay and work, right? Now, school is good. We just had 2 people drop out. And that's okay because they realize it's not for them. And I never want to put them in a circumstance where they're going to crawl down a smoky hallway and not make it out. So that's fine if you don't make it through. But we're hiring. So here's a flyer. There's a couple handouts, the trifolds. If you know anyone that would meet some of the requirements, and the requirements, you know, you got to be able to lift heavy weights. I need you to be available. You have to live within 20 minutes of the fire stations. 18, and again, live around. Likes to get dirty, likes to sweat, likes to have fun, right? It's a camaraderie, it's a brother, it's a sister, it's a family, and what we are. And honestly, again, Minnesota is really different because 92% of the fire departments in the state are paid on call or volunteer. So Minnesota offers a pension for paid on calls. We had a firefighter work for 40 years. You get a very, very, very nice check when he left. But that's that dedication and hard work that you put in that you get for it. So you are my best way of getting out in the community. And if you know someone who's interested, please pass it on. It's on our website, it's on our Facebook, it's all of that. So please pass that message out. So I unfortunately need to leave in a minute. I need to take care of the family. Is there anything else that anyone has for me? Any questions either about how we can educate or what we actually do that I can help answer?
Is there any success from like community fundraising for helping with funding like this?
So we don't do a lot of community fundraising because our city council supports us where we need to. ADM just bought us some new thermal imaging cameras so that it's a camera that we can see through smoke, okay? And we had a fire there and they reached out to me and said, hey, we want to give some money, and we bought 8 to 16 of them, and that was awesome, right? Because it's kind of one of those wish list items that I wanted. I don't need it, but it's really nice to be able to have them, and instead. So I will always take donations because there's always something, but we don't actively seek them because our city council does a really, really good job about supporting us and giving us what we need. We also live within our means, meaning one of my fire engines is a 1995. Now it's up for renewal in 2 years, but we keep our stuff for a long time and it works, you know. So we don't do a lot of fundraising, but we'll always take some if you have some. If you guys can think of any other education, please let me know. I do have some good takeaway. I want to work on some of the hands-only CPR, and we can get out in the public a little more, and I think I got some ideas on how we can do that. You know, I really like the idea about the chamber and reaching out to the chamber and working with the community. Love the idea on the junior firefighter. I mean, that is one of my goals to be able to get. And then the driving school, that's a really, really good idea because I'm not going to say all of these, but most of these car accidents are preventable, you know. So, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking your time.
Thank you.
My contact information is in there. You should be able to get a hold of me. If not, it's on the city website under the fire department. Pretty easy to find. If not, you can get it from me. But again, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
And Mike, if they're looking through this later on and just have questions about the stats or anything like that, they can
Absolutely.
reach out to you or me.
Absolutely. And the annual report is on the website too. So if you want to share with anyone or find anything cool, or even if you have ideas for next year, I'm always open to ideas for next year on the report or anything. So, okay, good. Thank you again. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep.
We will be early tonight. Does anybody want to go grab just a little bit more? Oh, yikes. Don't, you have to call Mike back and help you. Yeah, it'd be great to get some students through there, yeah. All right. Well, we're going to talk just a little bit here because we'll talk with the full group too in a while. But I just wanted to get you guys' feeling or questions, things that we should as a group, all of us, be thinking about. So right now, the advisory team is funded and scheduled through 2022, through the end of this year. And the idea is, we want to kind of have this conversation maybe 2 or 3 times before the end of the year. How can this group, I'm looking for a number of different thoughts. How strongly this group feels if it would need to continue. Right now, we're thinking it would just go through the end of this year. And if it continued, what that would look like. Want to know what you think of the idea of, we have 14 boards and commissions. And so how could the work of this group be, made to be part of the boards and commissions that's just always sort of in the city code. I think about like the HRC, Michael's a part of that. We do have some members, I think Michael Choloway, but who are members of current boards, but this group doesn't just look at, human rights, because obviously equity is every single thing. So it's in planning, it's in arts and culture, it's in sustainability, the heritage preservation. So it really, the goal of the city is really that equity in the work that you all do and the work that you're doing, looking at what the city departments do. That should really be things that every board and commission is doing all the time. Do you know what I mean? So, wanted to have it's to start the conversation tonight. We don't have everybody here and we're not going to get done with the conversation. But by the end of the year, it'd be good for this group to feel good, about the work that we've done. And we'll talk more about how this year's work is going to get move forward. But to feel good about the work that's been done, and then also to feel like it's not just done, that this work continues. And I don't want anyone from the advisory team to walk away thinking, oh, but now the city isn't going to talk or think about this anymore, and this is supposed to be the beginning, not the end of this. So, and I was going to mention, I was going to wait till Michael gets back here, but really the work that you all are doing, these suggestions that you're giving each of the departments. So we're creating lists of those, and the summary notes will be, some of our, and I've got to get last time's up there, is on the website too. And there will be a 3-year racial equity plan that happens at the end of this year, so it'll be a 2023 to 2025. A lot of the suggestions that you made were in this 1-year plan. And then there are additional things that will be in the 3-year plan, and so you guys will have a chance to weigh in on that, add things, change it, whatever, by the end of the year. But that is sort of the idea now, is that the work of this group gets spread out through all the boards and commissions. But I want to know kind of how you feel about that. What are you thinking? I'm just gonna kind of leave it open to see what's on your mind about that.
If it does, like, if this group is not, like, continuing, it might be interesting to look at like they've done with the Reverend 2020, Reverend 2040. If it was like a, every 5 years there's a advisory team assembled, so you kind of look at a broader picture every, if there was like some sort of, at least going forward that there's, periodic reviews from a team.
Right.
That's independent of all the
It's
departments.
independent from all the, yep, and independent from all the boards and commissions. It's
Yeah.
just sort of a,
Just overall, just kind of,
Checks and balances of stuff
Yeah,
that we
just-
talked about, and they said they're gonna change and
So,
move forward.
so maybe if we did, if we recommended something like that, then we maybe have like a timeline proposal, like by this time, and maybe go like every 3 years, by this time in 2025, we'd like to see this have changed in each of the departments. And, and then that group can kind of focus on, did those changes happen? And, why not if they didn't, and how to get them finished if not, that type of thing. So we could kind of come up with a big picture parameter of the next, maybe, the next 3 years. And then the next group could take it from there or something, 3 years, 5, whatever it is.
so would that be different than Liz? That would be, it sounds like that would be different than, these are great ideas, I'm just trying to, so there'll be this 3-year racial equity plan, which may or may not be everything that you want in there. So that's one tool, I guess, that will happen. And then there is, and so maybe if there's a group, they could also get this information. The goal is, not the goal, it's happening. During the January workshop, the annual workshop of the City Council, they will get from every department and every board and commission, they will get a 5-year plan. They're asking every group to come up with a 5-year plan and a 1-year plan with specific things that are highlighted on how equity is being advanced. And then they have to report to the council at the end of the year on that. So like at the next meeting, the next council meeting, we're kind of late getting started. Not late, but it's, July is when each of the departments is presenting their plan of how every department will do more in terms of equity, and then they report back to the council. So if there was a group, I'm saying, if that came to be like this objective group, they could also receive those in between the 3, or, if we got together, I don't know, quarterly.
Well,
or
just,
twice a year or
going on
something.
what Corey was suggesting, which I think is a really good suggestion, is that then it gives the new group like some background information of what was started. So they're not starting at ground zero, they're picking up. And they're able to view like what's currently going on, what was what was the hope that we would achieve at this point. But they can just pick up and go then and not spend time, with all the back information that we already have. Because we could summarize that in a way to say this is where we are leaving it, and this is where, the initial group, just kind of the plan for the next group to take it and go with.
Yeah.
But we could take it from where we started at ground zero and did, so that they would know that. And then, the suggestions we gave to the city and these departments for the next 3 years to work on, so they can then have something solid to check back on and see what, they've got some objective measurements then to see if they've met those benchmarks.
So like an advisory team, really a report of everything you did, even a list of all the meetings that you had, the people you met with, all the recommendations that you had. I mean, it could be a
Right.
whole thing that's, good. And then sort of a passing of, if there's another advisory group that would come together, maybe not, so Corey, your idea was maybe not immediately, but after a certain time period or something,
yeah,
potentially.
yeah. I mean, so at least there's, you know, a few steps out, and then maybe everything will be accomplished and no longer.
I mean, I like the idea of always having, at some point, a group checking and making sure that, one, it was done, and two, it's staying.
Sustained.
So it's not, you know, I mean, like education, like, gosh, it goes from, you know, this theory to this theory to this theory. It's constantly changing every couple of years, and, you know, so, but this would make it a constant then.
What are
And I
some
think,
thoughts?
too, you know, going like what Cora's suggesting is like, if there's any naysayers of the group reconvening, it'd be no, like, you know, we took this 3-year pause where we weren't paid, with all those kind of things, but this is the new group kind of checking back to make sure this is going on, you know? So instead of having to just keep going, we gave them time to implement things. And then to make this group efforts more, I don't want to say legitimate, but I'm going to say legitimate, they can then make sure that these things that we've suggested have been being followed up on.
What do others think about that idea? Or you say, Michael, we don't know if, but that's what the plan is for the end of 2022, and then the idea is that some of this work will go out to boards and commissions, but this idea has come up, which is pretty cool, so. Any thoughts?
I'm pretty much gonna be done at the end of the year.
It's been a long, you know, because this group started in September, so it'll be 2 years and 4 months, almost 2.5 that you guys have put in. It's a long time, you know, every single month.
It'd be nice too to get, again, between there, if there's some sort of, you know, community survey or report card. I know people don't fill them out, and they're maybe not that accurate, but at least to get, you know, these kind of periodic checks with the public to see if they're perceiving a difference or, you know, feeling, I don't know.
Yes.
Those would be pretty
And I
easy
don't know if
to.
that, I mean, I don't know what like response rate, like, you know, if that's something that people of color who are like really impacted by it are, you know, is that, I don't know. I mean, we have a hard time getting surveys in anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and, you know, when
Or is there a
hire
different,
these,
a better approach to, you know, making sure we're getting input
also,
from,
yeah.
and not just from, you know, from us or something, because it's like.
Well, if you could make up a survey and like leave it at City Hall, and then people, especially like when they come to the city council meetings and stuff, because you can draw a lot of people at those city council meetings, and just have one there, and people could fill it out as they wish, you know, on, and if they knew it was there, they could stop it and fill it out anytime they wanted to.
We can get a lot of different places, I think. I know this group and others asked for more data to be shared and more data just across different ages, race, all of that, gender. So we are working with a group that by the end of this year, and you guys will get, be able to look at that early on. You know, I think we shared the housing report card and the economy report card. Did you see that one pager? Does that sound familiar? Have you seen the housing one? But that is collecting all of both local data, like from the city, and also from the census. And so that'll be online, and it's working with the schools and all different groups so that it's a broader community report card. But that's different than the survey that you're talking about, Corey. And
I know.
we can do that. You can even work with groups so that they can get, you know, surveys to
Yeah,
their...
and it's even tailored different audiences. I don't know.
Yeah, that is the hard part, but it can be done. Yeah. Yeah, I want to know what you feel like when this is done. what would you, it sounds like what you want to make sure that this stuff is still being looked at. You know, I want to make sure that this group feels like the work was worth it and that it wasn't just a one-off, you know.
I want to make sure the community feels this was worth it. And that's why I think it's important to continue to have some checks and balances to continue it.
Yeah.
Not myself as much as I want to make sure that the community who is, you know, who knows we assembled this and everything that the resources used to assemble this was for a positive. And then I think that then will entice more people to whatever time frame it reconvenes, will, you know, to participate in it.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we can make, I mean, there are some really good recommendations that have come out and that will come from these individual meetings with departments. So even in addition to those going to council, we can make that into a bigger thing, I think, so the community knows all the recommendations that have been made by this group and some of the progress that's been made, for sure. Okay. So we have a certain amount of months. What is it? August, September, October, November. I want to say December because I want that just to be food, music, getting together. What do you want in those, what is it? August, September, October, November, in those 4 months? Can you let me know? And we have time slated for each of the other departments, but what would you want to make sure happens before the end of this team? Are there certain people? Are there certain departments? Are there certain plans, activities, something? It can be anything that you would want to make happen, and we can talk about tonight, or you can email me too when you think about it. When you wake up in the morning or something.
I'll email you with my questions.
Okay.
Maybe have like the chamber and the visitor center come and just see how they work with all communities and how they, you know, how like the visitor center, how they welcome different communities that come in, the chamber, how they recruit different communities to come in, you know, that type of thing. And do that, I mean, do they do that? I don't know, you know, but, you know, when I look at the businesses in town and stuff, that there's no diversity really to speak of, and the festivals that come to town, I don't see the big groups that come to town, and I don't know all of them, obviously, aren't diverse. I've volunteered at several that have come in, like setting up and that, and they're not diverse at all that come into town. You know,
the people who are
attending them.
Oh, who are attending them? Yeah, right.
I mean, they bring a lot of people, but there's no diversity.
Right.
That shouldn't be nothing new. That's been talked about for a while, long time now.
I know it's not new, but I'm wondering what they're doing to change that
Right.
environment.
Yeah, I did step in and
That
see,
should be on them to help change that.
Yeah, I did step in and see Michelle Larson yesterday in her office, and we were talking about River City Days, and mentioned that this group, either this whole group or members of this group, would want to sit down with her and talk with her about, you know, because we talked about River City Days in particular. And what can she do? And
why
she's
can't-
really, she seemed really open to meetings so that as soon as this one's done, they start planning already for next year.
Like, why can't we have our own Pride Festival, you know, in town, and why can't, I mean, those are the things that they can help with. And they can encourage, they can reach out to other communities and say, Red Wing's having a Pride Festival, Red Wing's having this. You know, when you look at, I mean, we've used a lot of resources to bring in the river boats, and that's great, and, you know, the Fall Arts Festival and the Arts Festival they just had, but that is one group that attends those.
Yeah, I think part of our next, one of our next meetings, one of the next two could definitely be bringing Michelle from the chamber and Paige from the VCB. What's that called? It's like visit regular. Yep, great. Other thoughts? That's good. Because really, I mean, the advisory team is, I mean, people know who that is. So if there are other groups or something like that, I mean, and then we do have some time to get into more with the Port Authority. So when you're talking about businesses and stuff, that can be a conversation. Police Department, I think they're slated for September or October. Community Development, I'm trying to think of Public Works. Anyway.
Could we ever, like, for one of them, even like maybe when they're here, invite like leaders from the different nonprofits, or even just to get some people thinking about their own organizations. I know it's not really the city, but it's within the city. To just have kind of some like brainstorming things or best practices or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, really.
The only issue I have with that is when you do that, you got people coming in, taking others' ideas as their own. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big issue with me. Like, if we're gonna work on something, we should get the credit for it instead of some other organization who came in, listened to what we had to say, and then turned around and took it as their own. Like, I'm not cool with that. But I'm just speaking for myself, so I'm not speaking for nobody else.
Well, I think you're kind of saying, Cora and Jude, just to get people thinking.
Yeah,
like,
just like review.
How do we do that? Like, why don't we bring in people who, just sort of like, kind of
More of
thinking
just
a different way of thinking.
Yeah, like how are you doing anything to, I don't know.
Or even recruit, like,
Better.
staff members.
Yeah.
Be better. My brother wears a t-shirt that says be better. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, this has helped me a lot, just thinking of things that, I do at work. And something that's little things, but, like if people aren't speaking English, I mean, I don't speak Spanish, but at least when they leave, I can say, gracias or whatever. And it's like, I'll simply see them smile, like, okay. And it's like that little tiny bit of like connection or whatever. And sometimes it doesn't take much.
Right.
But
Okay. No, that's good. Yeah, I think the people who come would be open to doing that. We're not making anybody come. Invite. Okay. Anything else? And hopefully we'll kind of have a little bit of time maybe at the end of the next couple just to kind of our time together. Yep, to make sure that we can end properly, that we get, this report. I think I like what you're saying, Liz, that it's sort of it's like a completed, this is what we did, so that the group knows and feels like you can always like have this and say, and the city and everybody else can't forget about it.
And if it's created as a living document, then it's just passed on to the next group, and it's something they can use as a, launching point. And
Okay. Good. All right. If you think of things, and hopefully you will, let me know. Otherwise, I don't have too much else tonight. Does anybody? It's a beautiful night. So, and I'm going to, we don't adjourn these, but I don't know, technically we're adjourning.